Greetings, boys, girls, and gender rebels. I'm Penny Underbust, and today you are joining me for, I guess, kind of a rant video, and I guess kind of also an answer video. I'm gonna rant about one of the most commonly asked questions that I get, and this one's gonna be, not about my boobs. Haha. Excellent. So it actually occurs to me with this one that I might need a little bit of backstory for some of my newer viewers here. I lived in Japan for 4 years. That's right, I'm an Australian woman who fell in love with an American military man who got stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And so I got to live, got to live in Japan for 4 years, and it was really, really awesome. That's kind of all the backstory that you really need for it. But a lot of people have asked me since moving to America, after having lived in Japan for a while, what are the things that I miss most about having lived in Japan? And I'm kind of just going to rant about that topic, and also about having, like, what I miss about Australia, and also what I love about America, because there's so much, you guys. And that's kind of what this video is going to be about. Yeah! You still here? Awesome. Okay, let's get into this. So, the things that I miss most about Japan, I think, are fairly obvious things. Like, I miss the food a lot. I know that's probably cliched for a chubby girl to say, but something that if you've only ever lived in America or Australia or England, you won't necessarily understand this, but maybe if you live in, like, for example, if you're from Japan, or maybe even if you're from one of the smaller European countries, a lot of these places are known for a few dishes. Like, they only do a handful of things, but the things that they do are exceptionally good. Like, one of the things that I missed a lot about Japan is there was this udon shop that just, like, it made the noodles in front of you from, like, dough into fresh noodles, and then there was just some tempura to put on top of it, and it was so good. And it was like $6. And it was ridiculously simple. It was just simple, wholesome food that was cheap and available and really, really high quality. It always tasted good. And it's harder to find that sort of reliability or that simplicity here in the USA. On the flip side, living in Japan, I missed the fact that in Australia, you can get any cuisine. Like, in Australia and in America and probably like England and stuff like that, you can get things like American food, but then you can also get Italian food, and you can also get French food, and you can also get Japanese food, and Chinese food, and Taiwanese food. Like, there's all sorts of food, but when I lived in Japan, you could only really get Japanese food. And they did do other things, like they had Italian food, they had French food, but it was really just Japanese French food. And I understand that in every other country we do that as well. Like, an Australian version of Italian food is going to be abysmal, but in Australia you're more likely to find a family of Italian immigrants who have set up an Italian restaurant that is very authentic, and they probably have a handful of kind of pandering meals on the menu that they have to sell, but then they'll probably also have a lot of very authentic, like, really yummy things. And in Japan, there are a few instances of that, but they're just so much harder to find. So Japanese food's cool, but also American and Australian food is cool too. Other things that I miss about Japan. Well, it was really beautiful, but I feel like everywhere is beautiful, and you just have to find the right kind of beauty for that area. Now, I lived in Okinawa, which isn't... Saying that Okinawa is like Japan is somewhat similar to saying that Hawaii is like mainland USA. They're quite different. They do have a lot of similarities, and they are technically the same country, but they also have very deep heritage differences and cultural roots and stuff like that. So Okinawa is quite different to mainland Japan. But even so, the people there are so nice. Just so nice. Like, it's just wonderful. It's wonderful. You never feel threatened or intimidated or scared when you're in Japan, or at least I never did. There's probably some situations that you can hypothetically get into, or even realistically get into, where you do feel those things. Like, the bureaucracy there can be a little bit of a scary thumb. But culturally, it feels very comforting and safe. And I can say that America doesn't really feel that way often. And that might be because I'm from Australia, right? I'm from a town where you know every single person, you know every single person's name, you know everyone's parents. Like that's the environment that I grew up in. So it makes sense that America would be intimidating, but Japan also had a very large population density and it didn't feel as intimidating. Even Tokyo I felt safe in, which is huge. So many people. God, I love Tokyo. That's another thing. I really miss Tokyo. I miss being in a city of that scale that has that level of just amazing things to go and check out, but you still feel safe. Because every other big city I've been in definitely feels dangerous. Like, Tokyo is a testament to that country. It is a beautiful, beautiful city. What else do I miss about Japan? I miss all of the anime and manga shops. Those things are definitely available here, but they are so expensive. Like, my gosh, that the people who ship things from Japan to America really gouge people on prices because, man, I miss going to some of the, like, recycle stores and stuff that they had and just pouring through random Pokemon toys that were made in 1998 and stuff like that. It's just cool. It was just cool, guys. There's definitely stuff like that here in the US too. There's not a lot of that in Australia. Australia doesn't have as many people as Japan and America, so you don't get as many like crazy collectors giving up their whole collection and just like, wow, look at this excellent find. You don't get that as much in Australia, but you got that a lot in Japan and a little bit here. Well, the biggest thing that I miss about Australia, and this kind of goes without saying, but I mean, it would be silly not to, is my family and friends. Australia is where I spent the first 22, 23 years of my life. So, of course, I have a lot of very strong human bonds there. And those are kind of the things that I spend the most time just missing. But some kind of good news on that. Seems like my brother is moving to the USA, which is really excellent. I'll be able to hang out with a family member again. And with both my brother and I living here, it'll probably be easier to get mum over more often. So I'll spend more time seeing my mum as well, which will be excellent. I have a really wonderful mother, you guys. She's really cool. I should talk about her sometime. I know that I don't talk much about my family. If anyone's interested in anything in particular, ask questions. I may not answer, but I may as well. In Australia, I felt like a massive, massive, massive fish floundering around in a pond, and nobody got me at all. And I didn't even get myself. I was like, well, if I'm like this, I guess I'm just a freak. And then I moved away from Australia, and I was like, oh no, okay. Australia is just repressed. All right. America's wonderful. And even though I don't feel especially safe here all of the time, definitely the least safe that I felt out of the three places, I feel accepted here. I feel like I might offend people, but I'm allowed to offend people. In Australia, existing and accidentally offending someone was like you're ostracized from society, weirdo who loves big boobs. Like, that's very much the way that Australia feels. And I think that maybe in some parts of America there's that, especially in smaller communities. And I mean, I've only lived in certain parts of this country, and this country is huge and diverse and amazing, and there are exceptions to every rule. But overall, people here seem to be okay with you just being different. People are like, well, that's not my thing, but you do you. Like, some people will come up to you and tell you how you're wrong. Like, they will be like, hey, like, you shouldn't dress like that because I don't like it. But those people are just, you know, they're the jerks. And there's jerks in every culture. There's just different ways of being a jerk. And even though there's not that kind of jerk in Japan, it's worth that kind of jerk for that feeling of just that other people get you, that you aren't totally alone, that you're allowed to just be different. I like it here. I liked it in Japan, and I liked it in Australia too, don't get me wrong. I really like it here. It's a cool country. And as much as it has issues, and we should definitely still address the issues, just because there's problems in the world doesn't mean everything is awful. It feels like the world is just so negative at the moment, and it doesn't necessarily have to be. Still fight for the things that you want to fight for and save the people who you're able to save, but it just doesn't help when all you can see is the bad and you don't take time to see the good, because there is a lot of good in the world. There's people helping in every situation, and there's people being wonderful, and the negative aspects of a culture or a society or a group or anything, like they're always going to be the loudest aspects, just because bad people don't have restraint like good people do. Bad people don't hold themselves back. You shouldn't let that be the thing that taints a thing. And I know this has gone a very long way from the initial, like, what do you miss about living in Japan, Penny? Like, a lot, because it was a wonderful, beautiful country. But I also love living here, and I love living in Australia, and I'd love living in New Zealand, I'd love living in Canada. I love living in any number of places, and I don't know, I tend to focus more on what I love about where I am than what I miss about where I was. And now you know why I don't do rant videos very often, because they just kind of... I hope that was entertaining at the very least, though. Or, I don't know, inspiring, happy, nice thoughts. Don't hate yourselves, Americans. There's so many comments in my comments descriptions of people who are Americans who hate themselves because of that. And it's like, no, guys, you're good. You're the least racist country I've ever lived in. I can tell you that much. Just, you can address your problems without thinking you're the worst thing ever. Stop talking, Penny. If you like my crap and you want to see me keep making stuff, feel free to check out my Patreon. No obligations, though. From the bottom of my little black heart, thank you so much for joining me, everybody, and I will see you next time. Goodbye. Whenever life gets you down, Mrs. Brown, and things seem hard or tough, and people are stupid, obnoxious or daft, and you think that you've had quite enough, just remember that you're standing on a planet that's evolving and revolving at 900 miles an hour, and orbiting at 19 miles a second, so it's reckoned, a sun that is the source of all our power. The sun and you and me and all the stars that we can see are moving at 1,000,000 miles a day, on an outer spiral arm at 30,000 miles an hour of the galaxy we call the Milky Way. Our universe itself contains 100 billion stars. We're 100,000 light years side to side. It bulges in the middle, 15,000 light years thick, but out by us it's just 3,000 light years wide. We're 30,000 light years from galactic central point. We go round every 200 million years. And our galaxy is only one of millions of billions in this amazing and expanding universe. So remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up in space, 'cause there's bugger all down here on Earth.